welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shirin.
And it is officially August.
August.
Welcome to the month of August, everyone. Woo!
It's hot, hot, hot.
Oh, God, seriously. It's like we're hitting that point of summer where I'm like, okay.
Megan's ready for spooky season.
This was enough now. This was great for about 4 weeks, and then I got over it. And now I would like to go back to more reasonable weather. I'd like to open my windows and turn off the AC. Yeah. I think more than anything is like what I would like.
Been a lot of AC this summer, given how crap the weather's been.
Oh my God.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like normally I can turn the AC on and off a little bit.
Do we have any people experiencing something similar? Maybe you are, or maybe you're also in Canada and you can relate to
so hot and sticky this summer.
Oh, it's been awful, even though it's been raining for about like 65% of the summer so
much.
Far.
Yep.
But obviously we've hit a new month, which means that we're heading into a new theme for the month of August. And I guess partially because it's hot and sticky and gross, we maybe still wanted to do something fun to kind of like officially sort of close out the summer. So for the whole month of August, we're going to be talking about romcoms. Yeah. Everything to do with, you know, romantic comedies in literature. We're going to talk about some adaptations, including an upcoming one that I think a lot of people are really excited about that we're going to talk about later this month. A lot of like the elements to them, I guess, like, you know, like why they kind of still continue to be so popular.
And what we like about them.
Yeah, pretty much, because this is our podcast.
So you gotta listen to us.
Or you don't, but please do.
But please do.
We love you and we're happy that you're here.
Yeah, we're not big enough to make those types of...
Absolutely not. No one is, really. Oh. Anyway, so we're going to kick things off today and get all of that sort of rom-com fun stuff started, and we're going to talk about tropes in rom-coms, kind of the elements of what makes for a good one, and some of like our favorite picks, you know, that we've come across over the years and that we're interested in. So before we do all of that, Shirin, what is on your nightstand right now?
All right. Well, my nightstand is a little bit oversaturated.
I felt like you were leading up to something so intense when I asked you that question.
I'll be honest. I think I'm having like a little bit of like reader's block, but like in a weird way.
Okay.
Like I've got like 3 books on the go that I just cannot finish. And like I'm being stubborn in wanting to finish them.
Okay.
But what's happening is that I'm therefore not picking up anything else, and I'm like stagnating on my reading.
I'm always curious about this, actually. If anybody like, you know, ever reaches out to us, I'd be so curious to know if other people kind of go through this to these points where like, how do you feel about the idea of like a DNF, like did not finish a book? How do you feel about it? Are you that type of person who's always going to finish it even if you really, really don't enjoy it? Or are you actually going to just, you know, get halfway through, really not be liking it, and drop it part of the way through? Because I know that a lot of people have really varying opinions on that and whether or not, like, they're comfortable doing stuff like that. So that's always an interesting thing. Yeah.
And, you know, having 3 of them on the go, I feel bad, like, not finishing any of them.
What are these 3 books?
So I've got... I'm still stuck on the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I still haven't finished that one.
I feel like we've been talking about this for like 2 months now.
I know. I need to just... I think that one's going to have to be a DNF.
Okay.
I've got It Happened One Summer.
Yeah.
And that one's not that it's a DNF. I think it's just because I've been trying so hard to finish the other 2 that I haven't put enough attention on this one. But I did start it, and it did seem fun. Talking about rom-coms.
Yeah, no, very appropriate.
So really need to finish that one. And then the third one I have on the go is The Last House Guest, which is just like... it's supposed to be a thriller. And I think I've talked about this a few times now where I'm like trying to get through this damn thing. And I'm like, God, like these twists in this book are just not interesting. Like it's like, you know, and then she'll just be like, oh, and, you know... dun, 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 like, we're leaving the chapter on a cliffhanger. I'm like, well, it's not really much of a cliffhanger. Like, it's, like, I guess, like, it's okay, but, like, wow. So, yeah, so I think that one's gonna have to be a DNF. So,
fair.
With that, like, all out, I think it's gonna have to be It Happened One Summer. Very cute. I think the character is based on somebody from Schitt's Creek.
Alexis from Schitt's Creek. That's what I had read. That I think Tessa Bailey's the author. Yeah. I read a couple of her other books, and I think that's it. She said that in writing this one, she based the character, like the lead character, on Alexis from Schitt's Creek, which has put it on my list because I'm a Schitt's Creek fan. So I was like, oh, I got to get to that one.
You can borrow it from me when I'm done. It's not very long, so I really need to just get on it.
Yeah.
What about you, Megan?
I am also in the rom-com space, and because I wanted to get to this because I haven't before the movie drops, I just started Red, White, and Royal Blue. So I don't have an opinion right now,
okay.
other than to say that I know the love that this book gets, according to the internet at least. And I definitely want to it's a rom-com. It usually doesn't take me very long to get through one, so I really want to kind of get through all of it before the end of, like, before, August 11th happens and it drops on Prime, because, spoiler alert for anybody who's not aware, there's a movie adaptation coming out that's going to be on Amazon Prime this month.
Great. Some big names in it, too.
Surprisingly, yes.
I know. Uma Thurman's in it.
It's R-rated, which is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what that's all about. We'll have to see once it actually drops and we can watch it.
I'm curious on the level of spice.
Yeah.
And what we'll get. But, you know what? It looks like it's going to be a fun time. So I'm all about that, and I'm all about finishing this book, too, to see what kind of a time it is as well. Yeah. So let's get started. Let's talk about some rom-com tropes, because they can be pretty easily distinguishable. I would say you get about 2 chapters into a book and you're like, all right, I know what I'm doing. Exactly, I know where I am right now. Yeah. So obviously, I think it goes without saying that enemies to lovers is probably the most used trope, I think, in not just rom-coms, romance in general. Yeah. Romantic stories, even if romance isn't the main focus of whatever book it is that you're reading, if there's a romantic element, most of the time it's going to be an enemies to lovers kind of thing.
I mean, that's my favorite romance trope.
I think it's a lot of people's favorite romance.
I'm a big fan of a good enemies to lovers. Like, you just love it. Like, you know that this is going to end up, like, in the opposite direction, but it's just fun to see them hating on each other.
For sure.
For a while at the beginning. And, like, this can be a range of hating on each other, from, like, the kooky fun, like, sabotaging each other, like, in a workplace, or, like, with friends in a high school, like, you name it. Like, it can be, like, kooky and fun, or it can be, like, serious enemies to lovers, where you're like, whoa.
You can definitely, but yeah, I would say definitely if we're in the rom-com sphere of things, it definitely tends to lean more towards that's it, like, we're sabotaging each other in, like, a life situation or work situation or whatever, things like that. I think that, like, good sort of examples of that are, like, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, which, like, spoiler, we're going to be talking about that this month anyway. So that's, like, probably one of, like, the top examples. And it also it intertwines several different, I think, smaller tropes within its enemies to lovers. It introduces the idea of forced proximity, because it's an office romance, because it's all taking place within, like, their workspace. And it introduces another trope that I think that not everybody always talks about, but I do see recommendations when people are looking for stuff like that, are books where the guy falls first.
Yeah, you don't get those very often. Often it's, like, the girl,
or it's, like, at the same time or something, like, it's developing, it's happening, blah 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 blah. But those are always good. Like, I think that there's always, like, a sweetness to them that you don't get with the others. So I do, you're right, I do really like an enemies to lovers where there's probably, like, a forced proximity and the guy falls first and he, like, admits it part of the way. If I were really gonna break down, like, my favorite rom-com, that would be it. Like, and you've got things like, even, okay, it's not a rom-com, but, like, I can't stop thinking about, like, Purple Hearts, Oh, yeah. Where, like, they're, like, enemies, kind of. They're forced into this situation for these reasons. Yep. And then he falls in love with her first, Like, there's a lot of these out there. So, for sure. Fan of those, yeah. Yeah, those are, that's it. That falls into, like, a totally different sphere of, like, a much more, like, drama-focused one. P.S. The guy who's in the film adaptation of Purple Hearts is going to be in Red, White, and Royal Blue. He plays Prince Henry, so...
He looks so different with
hair. It's the hair. The hair looks really different.
Makes him look a lot shorter. I don't know.
Well, maybe it's just because the other one's a bit taller than him.
Maybe.
I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But we came across that and I was like, oh, look, people I've seen in other romance stuff, because the other guy is the one from The Kissing Booth.
Is he?
Yeah, he's the second choice guy as of, like, the second movie or whatever, because they always have to introduce a second love interest at some point.
What's his name? John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt?
Yes, I'm sure that's what his name is. I think the actor's name is Zach something. Anyway, it's fine.
We'll have more information on that for the actual episode.
Anyway. So, yeah, I think that's a great one. Another one that I've I like that has a lot of those same tropes, not the office romance part, but a lot of those same tropes is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. They're like a very, very popular rom-com writing duo, actually. The Unhoneymooners is like a big, I guess I find anyway, like a pretty perfect example of that. And it also, again, has other tropes to it because it's about a woman whose twin is getting married to this guy and she really doesn't get along with his brother. Everybody gets really bad food poisoning at the reception except for her and the brother. So they wind up taking their honeymoon trip together to like Hawaii or whatever. And of course, obviously feelings, develop, et cetera. And it's another one of the ones where like the guy fell first.
Yep. There's also that Ali Hazelwood one, the Kylo Ren fan fiction.
Oh, the Love Hypothesis.
Yes, which I still can't believe I spent real money on.
But this is an unpopular opinion, but I have read 2 Ali Hazelwood books now. I read the Love Hypothesis, and I also had received an ARC of Love Theoretically, which I believe is her latest one, through NetGalley, which I did read. And I also did not enjoy very much because I don't think I'm a big fan of Ali Hazelwood's. And I know a lot of people are going to be pissed about that, but she has, unfortunately, the trope that she leans into, which is, again, like a subtrope that I very much dislike, is that of a girl who I can see, and in a lot of romance, yes, this is the case. It's sort of like, wow, I've never had sex this good before, which I can understand because it really drives home a lot of the point of like the connection that the characters have. Right. However, there's something infantilizing about the way that Ali Hazelwood's stories create these lead female characters, which is either like, the whole like I'm a virgin part, which is a Love Hypothesis thing. Yeah. In Love Theoretically, that's not the case, but it's one of those like, I've basically thought I was asexual because I've never experienced any pleasure until this person. And those are ones that I don't like because it's always how pure can the girl be for us. Well, right? Like, and it's like, the girl is so pure because she has to be, which like, is like a Twilight thing and all that kind of stuff. And it bugs me. Those are the kinds of things that get on my nerves because I'm always like, no, sorry, you're like infantilizing this like 20-something-year-old woman and I don't like.
And I haven't read Love Theoretically, but the Love Hypothesis, she's like a PhD student, so she's not dumb,
No, like, that's it. These are intelligent. These are women in STEM, which is like kind of its own subculture of romance at this point. I've seen quite a few of those.
Right, and so I've only read the one by her, and I don't know. Maybe this one kind of teeters on the edge of not necessarily just being enemies to lovers, but being like it's the power dynamic that's getting taken advantage of.
Because he's a professor? Yeah, I don't love that.
Yeah. I mean, and you see that in a lot of books as well. Like, again, like a lot of romance, it's the, man in a position of power,
And it's supposed to be sexy, but it just makes me uncomfortable because I'm like, oh no, God. And not like when it's done in a way where they're like on slightly more even footing, but when there's a clear distinction between your position and their position kind of thing as like, you're like basically like female character or more feminine identifying character, I should say, in the relationship itself versus the more masculine identifying of the two. It gets
messy.
Weird. It gets messy. We don't love that. But anyway, those are really good examples. I read another one of Tessa Bailey's books because you were just talking about it during the intro, My Killer Vacation, which is also like a bit more of an enemies to lovers type of thing as well. Sort of working on a slight mystery together, like grumpy bounty hunter and like a teacher kind of thing who like come together and like form a relationship, all that kind of stuff. So that's another one of those. But yeah, enemies to lovers, right up at the top. Everybody loves it.
And what's your opinion on friends to lovers? Another very popular trope.
It's weird because like I find that it can happen, and usually it's like an unrequited kind of thing when you have your friends to lovers. Normally one of them has feelings for the other one first, and like they're trying to build towards actually having a relationship. I guess, what the thing is, I do like friends to lovers I think can be really fun, but I can understand why it's not quite as popular because there's like less conflict, generally speaking.
For sure. And it's like there's always that like layer of awkwardness. I find, when you have an enemies to lovers, like the characters aren't afraid of just coming straight out and be like, no, I don't like you. Or like, oh,
No.
I hate this person. Whereas when it's your friend, there's always inevitably like kind of a bump in the story where one of them doesn't want to ruin the friendship. And that's technically the conflict, I think.
Yes, usually, yeah.
And it's just uncomfortable for the reader. Like, I just feel like, yeah, okay, if it works out, great, but you could really ruin your friendship.
Which is funny, too. I wonder if that awkwardness comes from the fact that friends to lovers is a more realistic trope in terms of, like, as a person in real life, what you would experience, and it is uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. You got to turn down that person if you don't feel that way.
Or vice versa. Yeah, that's it.
Or it's like, you know, there's always inevitably that, like, you know, inner turmoil of, well, I don't really like them now, but if I start looking at them differently, there was a book that I read last summer. I think it was called Love and Other Words.
Oh, yes. That's a Christina Lauren book.
Oh, yeah. Very sweet.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, it's very sweet. And that was a Friends to Lovers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I would say Friends to Lovers, and also another one that falls in there to, like, second chance romance.
Yes.
Because, like, you tried it once before, and now we're, like, meeting up again several years later.
Yeah. Yes. And those two tropes can be closely tied, right?
For sure.
If you're friends, you try it out, doesn't work, then you kind of
drift
a rift
apart
in the friendship.
Yes.
And then if you reconnect years later, then it can be that second chance romance.
For sure. So I get that. I think another one within the sphere, I guess, of that doesn't have to be enemies to lovers is probably like opposites attract.
Yeah, that one's a lot less confrontational.
There's just a lot less contention. It's just that, like, they're like, oh, we're really different people, and it seems weird. And normally I find that one stems more from the people around them being like, really? You guys are really? And, like, the characters, I guess, rather than being mad at each other, they're more surprised that they're entering into a relationship or that they're attracted.
Or not indifferent, but it takes a little bit longer for them to get started because of you know, they meet, they like each other based on who they are, and then you get, to your point, all the external, like, influence coming in, which casts doubt, normally for one.
Yes, for sure.
But you do get
both. Yeah.
And then it causes, like, that kind of awkwardness at the beginning of the relationship.
Yeah,
like,
that's
it.
So
will they, won't they.
I get what you mean. Like, it seems like those are instances in which your romance is a bit more of a slow burn. Like, it takes a little longer for us to get there and for things to, like, get started more because, like, people are not expecting it to happen. Exactly. So it just does. Yeah. Those are, like, I, like, wrote a couple of things down. Those are things like Beach Read by Emily Henry. Mm-hmm. That's definitely one that's like an opposites attract kind of thing. Two writers staying at two sort of summer houses next to each other. Mm-hmm. They went to college together and stuff like that, so they know each other, but they're, like, you know, kind of both working on different types of books than what their norm is when they're writing. And, like, the lead, she's dealing with personal things at the same time as well, and it's kind of like the development of that relationship. But there's definitely an element of slow burn in there for sure. They're just different types of people. I think that opposites attract also, you see that sometimes if you're like, oh, what does that mean? Think of it, sometimes the trope is called grumpy versus sunshine. So it's like usually the more male identifying character is like cranky.
That's what It Happened One Summer is like.
Yes, exactly. That kind
it's
of.
Her, she's all like rich and
bubbly and
bubbly, and then he's like cranky and like small town.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. It. And it happens a lot. Big city and small town people coming together. Yeah. That tends to be your opposites attract. Like, a lot of people will write about that kind of dynamic because people tend to be really different from each other. There's another one called Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams, which is, I think, a newer one. Like, sweet small town flower shop owner and bodyguard to, like, a really famous singer type of thing, you know, all tattooed and stuff, and she's all cute and blonde and sweet and whatever, that kind of thing too. And I read one a little while ago called Love in the Time of Serial Killers. It was cute. Like, it was a cute romance in the end.
That was a cute romance.
It was. No, it was, because honestly, it unfortunately, I think I was a little bit disappointed in it because I thought it was going to be more of a mystery than it was, and then it really just shifted into straight romance, and I was a little bit sad about it because I wanted there to be more of an element of I'm not sure until right at the end.
Right. Fair enough. And what's interesting about the opposites attract is that it sometimes gets tagged, like, under other tropes, like, you know, rich versus poor, or like, you know, popular versus unpopular.
No one wants to hear this, But 50 Shades of Grey probably falls under opposites attract.
50 Shades of Grey is just fucking weird.
It is, but if you had to like pick something for it, technically, because it's not enemies to lovers. That's not the way it works.
No, they try and do that like for a little bit.
For like 2 seconds, but she's like, I'm so attracted to him that it doesn't really work.
I hate him because he's rude. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that one's opposites attract.
Yeah, time. I'd say so. More than like an enemies to lovers or anything, or friends, definitely not friends to lovers, but more than like enemies to lovers, I would say that it's more of an opposites attract thing.
Although not a rom-com.
No.
Well, I mean, it is funny if you want to take it from that perspective. Funny but it's because not meant to be.
Funny because of poor writing and circumstance.
And then, poor casting choices for the movie.
So bad.
They did Jamie Dornan so dirty.
So bad. Poor Jamie Dornan. Although he might still, exist and have been able to get other jobs because of it. So good for him.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Way to go, Jamie Dornan.
You got to find the silver lining. I think another one that pops up oftentimes with, I think, probably especially enemies to lovers, but friends to lovers can definitely do this too, because people can be like roommates or whatever, is forced proximity. So you work together, you live together, you're in a situation where you come together, you're I don't know.
School together.
Yeah, that's it.
Or you've had to draw up a contract for some reason.
Oh yeah, because that's when you get into your fake dating, fake marriage trope that you throw under there too, is forced proximity, because you're forced to be around each other.
And then with that, you normally weave in an enemies to lovers
situation. Exactly. That's it, where it's like enemies to lovers and forced proximity are all thrown in there. What am I thinking of right now? Oh yeah, oh my god, there's actually this really funny book, just because of the circumstances of it, that I read maybe a year or two ago. What's it called? You Deserve Each Other. And it's actually very funny because it's like a couple who are already engaged, but they've gotten into too much of a rut, and I think they've been together for a couple of years, and I think both of them haven't felt like they can be honest about everything, about who they really are with each other and all that kind of stuff. They realize that they can't break up because whoever breaks up with whoever will be stuck with the huge bill for all of the wedding preparations that have been done. So
they're just gonna get married out of spite.
They start trying to sabotage each other in the house, doing things, but of course through that it's refinding that connection with them as a couple and why they fell in love in the first place. But it's just the circumstances of it are actually pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie.
That does sound pretty funny.
And I had a good time with it, and when they actually do kind of get back, get back to a better place and stuff, it's actually quite sweet. So I appreciate that one. And that's a good sort of example of forced proximity. I think another one too is, this book called The Flat Share.
Didn't they make a movie out of that?
I don't know.
Or did I see a movie? Anyway.
Maybe. Which is basically a girl goes through a bad breakup, has no money because she works at a very, very minimal paying job, and so takes this flat share option with this guy who's a night nurse basically at a hospital in an ICU. Yeah. And so he's there during the day and she's there at night, and they never see each other, but they start leaving each other notes and getting to know each other, and then it's physically getting to the point where they're meeting and forming a relationship but without ever having seen each other before that. Anyway, it's cute. It's a cute one. I liked it.
Well, there you go. I'm looking at my bookshelf now. I love rom-coms, and I'm when have I read rom-coms? What have I read?
I don't know.
Mostly romance.
Are they all on your Kindle?
I know, they're mostly romance that I read. I've got,
Oh, your fucking obsession with Nicholas Sparks, you.
Well, that's it. That's pure romance,
I don't
right?
I don't do that. Mine needs to be funny.
Yeah.
If it's not funny, I'm meh.
Well, the funny thing is, a lot of the books that you're mentioning right now, I've got 2 Emily Henry books on my shelf that I haven't yet read.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh, I don't know what it is about Emily Henry's books. I just like them.
Yeah, I think I need to move on from these 3 that are giving me reader's block, and
if you need to get rid of at least one or 2 of them, whatever it is, or all of them, and just go with something else instead, and maybe come back to something later.
The palette.
Yes, as it were. That's it. These types of books are the types of books I'm going to be reading for the rest of the summer, because I'm it's easy.
It's easy. Well, that's it. Make our way through them.
Exactly.
I think I made the mistake of trying to pick up a summer thriller. And that's just not my jam.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. Whereas it's much more up on my list. I'm more likely to do something like that, and it's fine.
Let's try to be you.
Yeah. And then, that's it. Then I think you also can get into, I guess, like your fake dating, your fake stuff like that too can happen. But I think you can also get into your second chance romance with those two, which also can fall into like your friends to lovers trope and stuff as well, because, you know, people meet up after several years, like we were saying, like Love in Other Words has that kind of vibe to it, because it's like, you know, a meeting after like 10 years of not speaking to each other, and then like trying things again, or like getting started with things again, admitting people's feelings for one another that they never did before, blah, blah,
and
blah.
then isn't Happy Place by Emily Henry kind of second chance romance?
Yeah, it's definitely, that's the closest to it that you're going to get, basically, because like the couple have technically broken up, but there really are a lot of unresolved feelings there. And again, forced proximity, they're all staying at the same beach house. Yeah. You know?
So there you go.
So see, they're all interwoven. Yeah. You know? And I think that brings us to our whole idea of like what makes good rom-coms, and I think that a lot of it is interweaving several tropes together.
I was gonna say, like, I think if you take these all separate, like if I were reading a book that was just second chance romance, you know, like it's always fun to have that like meeting moment, you know, and like reading about that.
You need a meet cute in your
exactly
rom-com.
So and I think really weaving them together, getting a layer of at least two is what's really going to give you a better rounded story, because otherwise you're, as a reader, you're just left feeling a little bit like shortchanged.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I think you need a little bit of all of it. So if it's forced proximity, is it also friends to lovers? If it's
or enemies to lovers.
Yeah, or enemies to lovers. If it's enemies to lovers, is it also an office romance? If that's something that you like, you know, is it also the guy fell first?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing.
Opposites attract. Is it, you know, second chance romance?
Second chance romance.
Is it? Yeah. I think that there's many options out there. The great thing is that it seems that we're seeing more and more of them on the shelves these days.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. That is like anytime you walk into any major bookstore and it's like summer read ideas and stuff, that's what you get. Yep. Majority of the time, if it's not like thrillers. Yeah. Like you've got one table for thrillers, one table for like rom-com.
And then you got one for spicy fantasy.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but
like that's all.
I don't know if it's as predominant during the summer that they do that, but they definitely do it.
It's definitely there.
I literally saw a photo online the other day that someone had posted where they had said like they went to their local Barnes and Noble. Oh yeah, and it was like the levels of spice, like 1 little hot pepper, 2, 3, 4, and 5, basically depending on how spicy the story was. And it's funny because you went from the rom-coms all the way down to fantasy, basically.
Yes, it like was like 5 hot peppers, and it's like, yep, and
you're like, wow.
That's what I'm talking about.
Gotta pick me up some of those.
Yeah, exactly. Don't mind if I do. I was like zooming into that picture. I'm like, which are these books? What are these? I'm gonna need to go buy those.
Yes. I just think that rom-coms make a great little addition to your summer bookshelf, and even if during the rest of the year it's not your vibe at all, it can just be like a really fun, really easy kind of thing to read when it's hot and sticky outside and you're at the pool or at the beach and you're being distracted half the time anyway because whoever's with you won't stop talking, or you gotta go get other drinks, or you gotta go get more drinks, or you want to go on the water for a little while, or you go get food, and if you drop off of it and come back to it, it's fine.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing. Like, I always find, I guess that's why I'm like, oh, like, you know, especially it happened one summer, like I could definitely get back into this because it's so like an easy one.
Of course.
So I don't feel too bad about that one, you know? And that's what's so great about rom-coms is that they're not complicated, like you said, and you can just come back to them like a while later.
Legitimately.
And you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like whenever you think about it again, you're like, oh yeah, that one.
Exactly.
But what do you guys think of rom-coms? You know, do you love them? Do you hate them? Are you just like, why the fuck are you guys even talking about this? I don't know.
Give us some classic literature.
Yeah, that's it. And some people stick to their genres that they prefer the whole year. I'm like a seasonal reader. I'm a mood reader, like very much a mood reader. I really have trouble getting through certain books if I'm like not jamming with them at all. Yeah. And then I can read them 3 months later and have a great time. It depends.
Fair enough.
You guys can let us know about that over on Instagram at fullybookedca or over on Threads, and where you can just search fullybookedca as well. You can also check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/book was way better. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.